We showed you the four scorelines there, Terry. Do you feel like there's only one match that is alive, or you feel there's a chance in all four? And I want you to be very honest and not say there's always a chance in the Champions League.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, you know, when you're 2-0 up or 1-0 up, it's 2-0 enough in this day and age. You know, I think a good friend of mine, Mark Seagraves, turns around and says 2-0's not enough this day and age. You know, the team gets one back. You look at Benfica and, you know, Inter Milan, it's 2-0 there, you know. At the end of the day, anything can happen, but you would expect teams who are leading to go on and win in the Champions League.
Okay, so the closest one there, since you said 2-0, we're going to go one less and go with a 1-0. The Napoli-Milan matchup, Stefan, for you, do you feel like that's possibly the only one where the tide can dramatically change?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, Napoli will have Osimhen back, you know, and it's not just him. They didn't really have any attacking threat up front in that first leg. Milan probably had something of a mental advantage where they'd obviously won their clash between the two teams in the domestic competition recently. So I feel like this is going to be a very different match. Napoli will be obviously up against in front of their own fans. They'll have the star striker back, and anything can really happen in this game. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some sort of reaction from Napoli as well. So, yeah, I think this game's definitely in the balance. It could go either way. It'd be definitely some great football to watch as well.
Napoli did create quite a few chances in that match, hit the bar as well. But Victor Osimhen, you mentioned him, Stefan. Terry, Victor Osimhen is going to be back. He's been a major miss for them since that 4-0 that Milan won against Napoli as well. How much of an impact do you feel it's going to have?
Well, you know, if he's fully fit up, he's a monster, isn't he? I think he's had an abductor injury, and once you get these, you never know if he's going to be fully fit or fit whatsoever. How long is he going to last? But I think his presence on the field is just enough, to tell you the truth. His presence on the field, I think it gives, obviously, Napoli another out, you know, something else to hit. Napoli was great in the game against Milan. But if you looked at that, the goal Milan scored there, it was absolutely fantastic. 5v3. Yes, there was a man sent off, and yes, they didn't have this chap playing, but I think now, game on, isn't it? It's real game on.
Well, he will be back. They thought he might have been back last week, but wasn't to be for Napoli. Will be back this time around, and let's see what he can do, how he can change that game for Napoli.
We're going to see a different Napoli to the one that lost 4-0, are we not?
You hope so, but I just think in the last 2 or 3 games that Napoli haven't quite been the same side. You know, and because you only need one defeat, and I think that 4-0 defeat has just rocked them a little bit. They didn't play particularly well at the weekend when they got a 2-1 victory against the lowly side. They just didn't play particularly well. And they didn't play particularly well. And they looked as though in the second half, they couldn't see where a goal was coming from. And that's a slight worry from them. They've just knocked their confidence slightly. I still think they're going to come through, but it's going to be much tighter than I thought when we went into these 2 games.
Augie, to Robbo's point, they don't seem like the same Napoli. You think they can recapture it for the second leg?
I think, you know, Spalletti said that he didn't want to risk him for this game and losing for 5, which you understand, but he really has to play next week. And he didn't travel to Milan, he didn't train the day before, so he's not played now since mid-March. So if, on that basis, he's got a groin strain, hasn't played for almost a month, I think it's a massive gamble, but he has to play. And without him, they're not the same team. But it's not the same team. He's obviously got this great presence up front, he scores lots of goals. And when he's not playing, they're not as fearsome an opponent for teams to play. So I think that's where they've lost the edge, at the fact that he's not there. So I think Spalletti has to play him next week because, look, the Serie A title's in the bag. The 16 points clear. So I think their season depends on next Tuesday. What happens in Naples is their season. So you have to play Osimhen. And if he gets injured and scores the winner next week, then we're in the semi-finals and he might miss it. But you have to play him. You have to, because they're not the same team without him.
Yeah, he starts. Well, look, even if he's 60 or 70%, it's not like they're in a title fight. It's close, as Mark said. So you play him. If he comes off after half an hour, he comes off after half an hour. It's the gamble that you have to take. I wonder if, and nobody expected this from Napoli really, to have such a huge lead in Serie A. But we've discussed in this show before, particularly with PSG in certain seasons where they've been so far ahead in the league, and how that was going to affect the remainder of the season for them. Were they going to down their tools a little bit? Were they going to just, you know, tailor it back a little bit in terms of their performance? And I do wonder, as Robbo said, Napoli haven't been that sparkling side that we saw for 70% of the season, and I wonder if that's something to do with their league position.
probably the flip of a coin. It's Napoli versus Milan. Milan have had joy against Napoli last 2 occasions, but now it's full steam ahead for Napoli. And Milan, is it one of those where they might just be a little bit too comfortable? They've got a 1-0 lead from the first leg. Napoli are minus 135. That could be a parlay piece, or you just steam into it. Milan are at plus 385. The draw is at plus 275, but the draw is no good to Napoli, but is good for the visitors. Over 2.5 goals at plus 100 looks... I think there will be maybe more than 2. If there's not more than 2, then I'm going Napoli -1 on the alternative line. Mark O'Hare, Napoli to score twice is minus 105. They score twice, they win the game, huh?
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. The bet I'm looking at here is based on the goals. I'm really surprised. Under 2.5 goals is the favourite of the 2, and the fact you can get BTTS at close to sort of plus 100. I think this has got all the hallmarks to be a really exciting affair. I think there's going to be goals, cards, drama. Napoli will have a bee in their bonnet after the first leg. I think they had justifiable and legitimate complaints about that final result, because they could have easily scored twice inside the first 10 minutes, could have scored within the first minute. They came out of the traps, went for the kill, didn't get the goal. The game became a bit more balanced thereafter. Milan took their opportunity on the counter-attack. They only had 2 shots on target in the 90 minutes. An excellent finish from Benacer to get the win. But, I felt the scoreline was a little bit harsh. Now with Osimhen back in the fold, now with the Ultras and Napoli kind of back, married together again, there's going to be a white-hot atmosphere in Naples. And, you talk about Chelsea kind of going early doors to try and attack Real Madrid. I think we'll see that from Napoli this time around. The refereeing, I thought, was particularly poor in that match, actually, in the first leg. And that's left them now with 2 big suspensions, Napoli, Kim and Anguissa. I know Anguissa's form recently hasn't been as good as it was in the first couple of months, but the 2 of those players, particularly down the spine of the Napoli side, they will be big losses. And I think that does create opportunities, therefore, for Milan as well. Looking at the second leg, I think Napoli will leave everything they possibly can out on the pitch. Osimhen gives them that clinical edge and attack, but obviously missing those 2 key personnel gives Milan an opportunity, who will, I assume, follow the same sort of hallmarks of last week, play on the counter-attack, play in transitions. And they obviously have players of real promise and potential. There's pace, there's power, there's physicality, there's trickery. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if Milan contributed to the scoreline here. But I do kind of agree with the market. I expect Napoli to score at least twice in this match, but I think Milan can contribute too. And just going back, very simple, but it's the second leg of a knockout tie, a lot on the line. There's going to be jeopardy, and at some point in this match, probably in the last half hour or so, kitchen sinks are going to get chucked around. I think key defensive personnel missing, loads of quality forwards, an intense atmosphere, expecting entertainment. I'm more than happy to be with the goals. So I looked at over 2.5 goals at a plus 100, but actually plus 140 on over 2.5 goals and BTTS was the bet I took out here, because it's too big for me. I would make it much closer to about plus 110, plus 115. I might look foolish come Tuesday night, but just think the market's got this one wrong. I'm expecting goals.
Yeah, and I definitely think that Napoli scored twice, by the way. At minus 105, remember that we might, if there's a game here that can just be switched around very quickly, this is it, Mina. Napoli versus Milan. Napoli obviously going to be absolutely at it, and hopefully, if you're a Napoli fan, Milan don't recover.
Oh, this is, I don't know which way to go with this. If you ask any Italian right now in broadcasting, they'll tell you that this could just be Milan's, and not because Osimhen is just back and there's obviously absences, as Mark noted, in Kim, obviously because of the yellow card suspensions to him and Anguissa, but just because Milan can do what they do best, which is right now defend and then go on the counter. And they have the vertical and counter-attacking ability, they have the pace and the dribbling, and when you've got Rafael Leao that you've already got 3 defenders out watching him, so they're going to be scared in that sense. So this is the fear, which people think just because Milan might have snatched a slender victory, that they can do enough in Napoli Stadium to perhaps play the kind of game that they want to play. And then it's on Napoli to show the very best of them. Now, here's the thing, that we know Spalletti's a great tactician, but does he have the great ability to really change the game mid-flow? And sort of that's the Italian tactician superpower, and that belongs to Ancelotti and that belongs to Stefano Pioli. But Spalletti is a kind of Pep Guardiola mode, somebody who has a great scheme, but when they throw a spanner in the works, does he adjust one enough? And that's the question right now, because the team has been suffering. I mean, Osimhen came on against Verona. They had one shot on target throughout the match. And you can say that they've been looking forward to this game and they have their minds on this game, and Osimhen only played for a little bit of it. You can say all of that. But at the same time, Napoli played with 10 different players. They literally played their reserve squad and put in a brilliant performance. The fact that they didn't get any penalties for everything that they witnessed is nothing short of ridiculous in that match that they played over the weekend. At full flow, we're talking about, the champions, the Scudetto holders against the champions-elect. So it's which is better in full flow. In their full glory, who is better? Napoli have some chinks in their armor because they are missing some people. I do agree, though, that the stadium could make the difference. Spalletti said that unless things are done and the crowd is on side and cheering for them the way that San Siro does for Milan, and I have to say Milan are very lucky to have that, because not every crowd can offer what Milan fans can offer, then he's going to walk off. And so obviously that kind of, forced De Laurentiis to make amends with the ultras and have this kind of, they hope to have this great atmosphere at the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona, but it's just not going to be as similar to San Siro just because the ground is different. So no matter what it is or how much they do, you won't feel the pressure in the same way opponents feel at San Siro. I'm worried for Napoli. I think Osimhen makes a difference. I really do. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I do see the brilliance of Napoli. I'm just saying that right now people seem to have figured out how to shut down Lobotka, and the ball is moving slowly in midfield. So if Milan get to play their game and then just launch counterattacks, do they have enough? I think they could, but Napoli can also be brilliant. It's just whether or not they can rediscover that, because they haven't been scoring many goals recently.
Yeah, listen, there's plenty of people in the chat that actually do agree with you. They're like, you got to leave Napoli alone at the moment. There's big question marks about